Welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. I'm Mary Crafts, and today I'm not only your host, but I'm going to be your talk. I'm going to be the one that's here sharing with you some of the things that are inside my heart. Every once in a while, I like the opportunity to have it be just you and me. I have the most amazing guests. In fact, usually I'm booked 3 or 4 months out with amazing guests. And I think, where can I fit me in? I want to talk. I want to share with you what I'm thinking, what I've been going through. And today happened to be one of those days. My guest at the last minute was not able to join us. She was ill. And so I'm like, oh, pick me. I get to talk. So here I am. So this is going to be a very short podcast, but it's something I've been thinking about that I really wanted to share with you. And it has to do with positive intentions. Now, so many times I hear people talk about positive intentions and that they are the be all end all. I just want to tell you right now, they are not. But they are a piece. They are a piece of the things that create change in us. And if we're not putting out our positive intentions, then clearly what we're doing is we're flatlining, or we're putting out negative intentions, even when we don't mean to. There are times when I begin thinking in my head negative thoughts, even me, yeah. And it'll be something like, you're too old for this. Or, really, why don't you just shut up and go away? I've had ones that have said, Mary, how long can you maintain your physical body and your strength and going to the gym? And then all of a sudden, everything you've talked about, will it not have any value? I mean, I find myself, even me at this age, saying those things, and it's a fleeting thought. But because I have positive intentions in my head, at my fingertips all the time, it's pretty easy for me to begin to flip and begin to say, wait, that is not truth. That is a lie. And the truth of the matter is, and then whatever it is, I put it out. The truth of the matter is, you're going to be able to maintain your physical body and health for a long time. And the truth of the matter is that that's exactly what I'm trying to teach, is that 71 is not too old. It's not too old for anything. And to try and convince women of that is sometimes like pulling teeth, but yet it's sometimes in my brain. So I want to share with you one of my positive intentions that I posted a long time ago that literally changed the status of my life and who I am today. It took me a long time, but I posted it on my mirror for 10 years. Okay, just think about that. How many times the cleaning lady came along and messed it up and I had to write it and put it up there again. And I just kept it and I kept it and I kept it. And what I put on my little Post-it note that I had on my mirror for 10 years was, I'm going to show it to you. What would I do today if I were no longer afraid? Now, when I first put that on my mirror, I was very afraid. And so this was putting up there the positive intention of what I wanted. And I didn't even give myself the comfort of saying, you can do this, you're not afraid anymore, you got this. But I began with a very, very quiet statement that said, what would you do today if you were no longer afraid? And I began to kind of like ruminate on that every morning. What would I do today if I were no longer afraid? And I would think through it, and I would think through my day and what my day looked like. I had this meeting, I had this networking event. And what would it look like if I were no longer afraid? Would I drive to the event and drive around and pretend I couldn't find a parking place and then just go home? Would I go inside just to sign in and show that I had actually showed up, but then very quickly leave? if I were no longer afraid, what would be my actions today? My actions would be that I would actually park at the first place. I would go in, I would register, I would sign in, I would get my name tag, and I would walk up to the first person that I saw, if I were no longer afraid, and introduce myself, and then introduce myself throughout the room. Now, that seems like such a silly thing for someone like me, who's like the most outgoing person you know. But to be honest with you, I was always just an introvert masquerading as an extrovert. And so it took everything I had. But when I put that on my mirror, I began to be able to rehearse and practice what that would look like. What would I do today at the networking meeting if I were no longer afraid? And I could actually visualize and see myself walking in, parking, doing the whole 9 yards. I could see myself talking to people. I could see myself not being rejected. I could see myself being funny and just enjoying my time. I could see myself passing out a few business cards. I could see myself zeroing in on people and focusing on them and having them feel important. And I discovered that the moment I got out of myself and focused on really creating an atmosphere where others could feel safe and secure and welcome, that I felt that way. And so by doing this rehearsal before showing up, it really allowed me to step in to being a positive, outgoing, welcoming, loving person, just because I practiced it and I had my Post-it note on the mirror. I'll tell you another time where this Post-it note, it affected me every day because I would look at it, I would read it, I would think through my day, and I would plan it. So shortly after I had kind of achieved my weight loss, in terms of not necessarily my fitness, but my weight loss, I had decided that I was going to climb Mount Timpanogos, which had been at the base of where I had lived at the base of this mountain for such a long time. I really never thought I would go up there. I really knew it was beyond me. And only people who were excellent hikers went there. That wasn't me. But then once I reached my goal, I thought, what's standing in my way? What am I so afraid of up there on that mountain? Well, of course, I'm afraid I can't make it. I'm afraid I'll look stupid. I'm afraid I'll have to turn around. I'm afraid I will fall. I'm afraid I can't keep up if I go with someone. That was the biggest thing. I would much rather go alone than be up there with someone and not be able to make it. Which in the end is exactly what happened. But I survived it. So let me take you back. I decided to set the goal of September 15th to climb this mountain. And I had set the date. I had thought about it because you don't want to really climb it before July because this mountain is high enough that there's snow up there. Really, there are glaciers through July. It's hard to get up there sometimes. You have to pick your path. But once it gets to be July, then you can make it. So you have July, August, and September. Well, postponing it, my usual MO, as long as I possibly could. I put September 15th. And the morning of September 15th, I woke up, I opened up my curtains and looked out because I could look out right at that mountain. And I was horrified. There's snow up there. It doesn't snow up there on September 15th, not until October. What the heck? And so I thought to myself, well, of course I can't go up there with snow. I could get hurt. I could get freezing. I could get lost. I could do all these things. And then I was in the bathroom and I was just thinking about not being able to go today, and a big piece of me being completely relieved that I would have to wait till next year because you couldn't go now once it snowed. And I looked up at the mirror and I saw this. What would you do today if you were no longer afraid? I thought through the day, if I were no longer afraid, I would go. I would go anyway, and I would climb that mountain. So I got all my stuff ready, got my hiking boots on, grabbed my jacket and an extra jacket just in case, and a pair of gloves, went out, drove to the mountain, and I was like, I am going to go up there because once I set my mind to something, I'm going to do it, and there's no turning back. I started up the mountain, and I was just so excited about being there that I actually had followed through on my Post-it note. I was going to climb that mountain today, September 15th. As I was going up, I kept seeing other people who were actually coming down. And I had people say to me, so how far are you going today? And I naively said, to the top. What? Yeah, I'm going to the summit. No, you're not. Can I tell you how many men said to me, no, you're not? And I was like taken back. Well, why don't you think I'm going to the top? Thinking that they looked at me and thought I wasn't physically able. That you're too old. You're too fat. You're too out of shape. The usual things in my brain. And so as I proceeded up, finally one gentleman said, excuse me, ma'am, you're not going to the top because there's snow up there and you can't see the trail. Well, you don't know me. I'll make it. And he's like, whatever. I think he kind of checked me up and down thinking he wanted to make sure he could describe my clothes to the rescuers. And I proceeded up and finally I got to the next little area and I saw another group of people and they said, how far are you going? And I said, to the summit. And the one guy looked at me and goes, no, you're not. And I said, well, why not? He said, you're not dressed warm enough. You have a jacket on. I said, well, I have two. Okay, so you have two jackets on. You need a parka up there today. You need heavy mittens. You need warm clothes. You need someone with you. You will need hiking equipment today. It's not the day to go. I'm like, well, I think I can go. Have you ever been up there before? No. Ma'am, you're not going to the summit today. Well, we'll see. And I proceeded on. I just was so disappointed to not go up there. They just didn't know me. They didn't know my resolve. They didn't know how determined I was. They didn't know what a badass I was. And I got to the one what's called the Big Meadow area, and I kind of lost the trail because it was snowed. I mean, you couldn't see the trail. So having never been up there before, I kind of went off this way. And the next thing I know, I'm in snow up to my knees, trying to get through this snow. And I really knew this is not the way. I'm off the trail. So I got very quiet and listened. And I could hear a group of hikers that were over that way, a different direction than I had gone. So I thought, okay, I need to go back. And I backtracked and then got back on the trail. I could see where they had gone. And then I went on up. And pretty soon, I was the only one in that area. And I got up to what's called the saddle, which is this dip in the top of the mountain where you look over from the back side of the mountain over the top into the front side down into a different valley. And it's kind of known as where you get to that saddle point, and then it's about an hour and a half more up to the summit. And the saddle is a great place to rest normally. Well, I came up the backside of that, and there was this beautiful mountain goats and her family and her little baby goats and kids. That's what they're called, kids, and her kids. And I thought, there's no reason to be afraid of them, but they look very sure-footed on this mountain as opposed to me, even though I had my hiking boots on. As I came up over the top of that saddle, that part to look over into the valley, the wind hit me so hard, it knocked me over. And the wind was coming up that front side of the mountain and just knocked me right over. I'm like, whoa, that's some pretty hefty wind to be out on the edge of that little edge that goes all the way to the summit. And so I stood up again. This time I was ready. I came up to the saddle, looked over. It was so cold. I thought, you can do this, Mary. You can do this. And I turned towards the ridge that goes up, and you could see there was this right side of the ridge and the left side of the ridge. And I thought, which side do I go on? I don't know. I started up the ridge just a little bit on the left-hand side. A year later, when I returned, I realized that was the wrong side, and I needed to be on the right side. And had I proceeded, I wouldn't have ever climbed Kilimanjaro. I wouldn't have ever been alive to climb another mountain. So as I proceeded up there, about 10 yards, and I was slipping and sliding everywhere, I stood up and I said, there's a difference between courage and stupidity. And I thought, I'm all alone up here, and I want to live to climb another day. This does not have anything to do with my not being fearless. This has to do with me being smart and wise. And I came back down and then proceeded down the rest of the trail and made it down safely. But I wouldn't have even got to that point if I hadn't have made the resolve in the morning of what I would do if I were no longer afraid. This Post-it note allowed me to learn that day, even though I didn't make it to the summit, that I did have what it took. And I did have the ability to put fear behind me. And I did have the ability to push ahead. And as I turned to leave that day, I looked at the top of that mountain and I said, I'll be back. And the next year I was and summited. But the very fear that I had to look at again. That day I decided I was going to go with someone, Jeanette Bennett, who had climbed the mountain many times. And I thought, she will help me find the way. Plus, she's also my good friend. And if I fail, which I'm not going to, she will be right there to help me and support me. So we went up the mountain. We actually got to the top. She was there with me when I was crying and signing the book. And that day I was the oldest one on the mountain. Not the oldest one who's ever climbed Timpanogos, but the oldest one that day. And just with me, as I didn't know if I would ever make it, but I did. I did. Because for a decade now, I had asked myself, what would I do if I were no longer afraid? Every morning, this positive intention turned from a question into a statement. I have whatever it takes to do and to handle and to be what I need for what's in front of me. And I have courage. I am brave. I am no longer afraid. And I know that at deep levels, the things that used to scare me to death now are like, I got this. Not that I don't get afraid for just a moment, but I got this. And I go on. That day coming down the mountain, my knee gave out, and I was wrapping my kerchief around my knee to give it support. I found a stick to help me down. And later, Jeanette told me, she said, Mary, I thought about you now taking off to climb Kili. And I thought, she's not going to make it. She's not going to make it. But I did train, and I did make it. And I did take a knee brace, and I was prepared. Nothing was going to stop me. Why? Because that's what I would do if I was no longer afraid. Positive affirmations can truly change your life. Positive affirmations can give you the belief that you can. So I want you to think in your brain right now what it is that's out there in front of you that says, I'm not able to do that. I can't do that. Oh my gosh, if I say those words, if I hear them come out of my mouth or in my brain, I stop. Stop it. You can do it. Or what can you do if you cannot do that? What can you do? What do you want to do? I have found that simply by asking myself that question, what do you want? What do you want? That is so powerful to me, way more powerful than what do you need? Oh, I need to do this. I need to do that. But when I can say, I want to do this, opens up a whole bunch of possibilities. So think for a moment, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want that you're not currently embracing and have in your life? So many women talk to me now about strength training, being fit, being healthy, being well, and that's what they truly want. So I'm doing a masterclass on this very thing, and I'm publishing it on YouTube. If you follow me on my social media, I've been posting these little mini strength training videos, and you might look at them and you might say, oh, I wish I could do that. I need to do that. Well, if you shift it and say, I want to do that. I want to do that. I'm going to do that. I am doing that. You see how that progression of positive intentions moves you towards your goal? So find your Post-it note. Mine at the time was just one of those little 3x3 Post-it notes, and it was up there, pretty plain, just pale yellow, not bright pink even. And I have Post-it notes that are 6x6. I have all sorts of sizes of Post-it notes. And I want you to write on your little Post-it note and put it on your mirror, because that's where you look first thing every morning. And put it on your mirror, the positive intention that you're going to fill your life with. Every day, read it. Every day, take a moment to visualize your day and what's in front of you, and actually rehearse and see yourself doing it. When I used to get up in the morning, I would go in, I would turn on my bathroom light, right over my vanity, here was this, and it would be my positive affirmation. And then, after that, the very next thing was I went in and I went to the bathroom. So that time between that Post-it note, when I went to the bathroom, and when I came back out and washed my hands, looked up at my Post-it note again, was my positive affirmation day. Those were my moments. That 60 seconds of thinking about my day and what I was going to do and how that was going to be the part of my life that was the most important to me. That I was no longer going to be afraid, because I'd already thought through it. I'd already looked at those fears and said, what? I can handle that. I got that. I can. So when the time came up, I already knew I can handle that. I've got that. Let's go. So whatever it is, if it is a physical thing that you're working on, of course, it all works together. You know, you don't work on one piece without the other piece. You have to work on them all together, because we're whole beings. We don't just have pieces of us randomly around here. We're a whole being. But in the meantime, if you're working on just a physical goal right now, like going to strength training, that's going to be on your Post-it note. I am strong. I am capable. I got this. I have this. I am this. Whatever it is that you're going to put on your positive affirmation, let me tell you, I am a firm believer. And this was 10 years on my mirror, and it changed my life, where literally every day I asked, Mary, what would you do today if you weren't afraid? I began just to pretend that I wasn't afraid. And then pretending led to seeing it, and seeing it led to doing it. And doing it led to being it. And now, I never ask myself, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? Because you know what? I'm not. And that's how we craft a piece of our meaningful life. Namaste.
Crafting a meaningful life.